Hello and welcome to the Dumb Aussie's Guide to Baseball. I am the Dumb Aussie, and in the next of our WTF Who to Follow series, I'm welcoming in Brian Myers, the most professional wrestler and Mets fan. Brian, how are you?
Slightly intelligent American.
Well, oh, geez, I don't know how to approach that because we don't want to put anyone offside who follows it, but
Uh,
uh, but I do have my two baseball sages. You might know them as Taro and Disco Machine
oh, okay.
from PWG, but
Yep.
we've got we've got well, pardon the baseball pun, but we've got a big leaguer here today. So pretty broad question just to start off with.
hmm
You're a big Mets fan. What made you fall in love with them?
Um, so a lot of it had to do with my dad's fandom, growing up. Um, we're big like New York sports family, predominantly Mets, Jets, and like my grandfather had season tickets to Islanders growing up, so there's some deep ties into like all four Knicks obviously, four major sports here in New York, and it's very. And I've also noticed throughout the years, I didn't realize how um I guess if you're a fan, how good you had it here because it's a deep thing to be involved in New York sports. Where you go to other towns, not once I became a wrestler and started traveling, I realized okay, like it's not as in depth or the coverage isn't so, on top of everybody and every little thing you do, but that just speaks to how diehard the New York sports fans are, that they want this stuff. Like literally to this day, I listen to the same WFAN radio in my car. I don't listen to music ever. My kids want to kill me. I listen to WFAN sports talk radio every second I'm in the car. Just like I remember my dad growing up. So I kind of inherited the Mets. Truth be told, it was a thing. I don't know. It was maybe 60-40 where I wasn't sure if I was a Met fan or a Yankee fan. And then I loved Mike Piazza. He seemed like so larger than life to me. He looked like a pro wrestler. He had the long hair and the mustache. He was in like commercials and stuff. And he was a catcher and he was just mashing home runs. So he really like kind of spoke to me. And then he got traded to the Mets. And I'm like, this is fate. And then like from that moment on, it was like, and then he became this icon of the team, right? So then it was just full steam ahead, all in, like just diehard Mets fan from then on.
So were you lucky enough to be a regular at the ballpark as a kid?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that also comes with the Mets territory, even to this day. Like Mets tickets might just kind of like fall into your lap. Like not a lot of people are always like, "Oh, I have Yankees tickets. Do you want them?" That doesn't really happen too often. Even like when I was a kid, when you're a kid, it's like, "Oh, I got a bunch of Mets tickets. You want to go?" And you would go. It was a little more easy to come by, easier to get to for sure. So yeah, I wound up going to a lot of stuff growing up, and with my dad too. So some of my fondest memories, are being at the ballpark with my dad.
Well, I mean, aside from the breakthrough, the sliding doors moment of Piazza being traded, do you have any memories, maybe even at the ballpark of going to those games as a kid?
Oh, tons. There's a famous game in 2000 where they scored 8 runs in the eighth to beat the Braves, and I was there live with my dad. I mean, I remember it felt like Shea Stadium was shaking, like it was like moving. The place was just erupting, and Piazza hit this laser home run over the left field wall that literally, like, it never got any air. It was just like a line drive homer that capped it all off, and the place went crazy. And then I like I just was always into collecting and I guess being half nuts. I saved everything, so I had just a big shoebox basically of all my sports tickets and concert tickets of everything I've ever attended my whole life. And a couple of years ago on our podcast, we had Darren Ravel on. He was talking about getting ticket stubs graded and slabbed and all this stuff, and I was like, huh. And obviously, there's like a financial aspect of that, right? Like some things, I have I have Mike Trout's. I bought in this time period. I bought Mike Trout's debut ticket slab, PSA slab, and I'm sitting on it for it to go up, but he just keeps having these injury plague seasons, and I'm waiting for that to go up. But on the flip side, the other ones that I had may not be worth that much money, but they were like keepsakes to me that like I'll cherish forever. So like I got that ticket stub slab. It's my favorite game I've ever been to with my dad. It was just an unforgettable experience, and I have that slab, and that's mine. to keep forever because it means that much to me.
With the boys, we talked about baseball cards last week. Did that bug bite you as well?
Oh yeah, once so it kind of coincides there. Like, you collect cards when you're little, but it means nothing to you really. You just kind of pictures and a lot. I don't know about in Australia, but here, it's very common to put them on your bike and just make that
Yep.
noise and the wheel. Like, I mean, really nothing, right? And then in '98, same year Piazza becomes a Met, is the epic McGuire Sosa home run,
Yep.
chase, if you will, and that exploded baseball's popularity and everything. And then me and my friends were collecting cards, and then it was like, oh my god, I need Mark McGuire cards. They're gonna be worth so much money. And then that was the first time that came into like my mindset, and we were all in. And then my best friend's dad actually was very intuitive about it, and he taught us how to write to players with self-addressed stamped envelopes and hope to get autographs back. So that was super exciting. We would spend some afternoons just writing all our favorite players and mailing them and hope to get something back. And then when you did, it was like unbelievable. And he was also on the ground floor of like taking us to card shows. So every once in a while we would go to card shows, and that was like, because I'm trading people for these Mike Piazzas if I happen to have one that I don't have. Here I can go through a whole bin of Mike Piazzas and just get them. It was incredible for me, like that, that access.
Well, you mentioned the ticket availability. Is there anything that sets a Mets fan apart from a Yankees fan?
Everything. It's not no, there's nothing that's comparable. I think Mets fans don't have it easy, right? We're like the little brother that gets picked on, so every time I feel like we get something good, it's like it means that much more. Um the ballparks, even to this day, like, I mean, City Field is, I mean, I'm very biased, but I think it's an incredible park. It's a family friendly park. It's a fun park. It has unique foods and it's beautiful, and really a fun destination where Yankee Stadium is like going to church. You sit there politely and you watch the game, and that's like it. It's not as much of an experience. I don't think so.
Well, I can't imagine ever hearing the word polite in the same sentence as a New York sports fan.
Right.
So, is there a difference in the decorum as well? I've been to a Yankees game. I've listened to the crowd when they get a bit restless. Does that
Yeah, I
differ
mean
at a
that's
Mets
gonna
game?
happen anywhere in New York, right? I mean, trust me, if you don't perform in New York, the fans of any team are gonna let you hear it, right? I mean, that just goes with the territory, and that's why they say some players can't, hack it here. Like you wear your heart on your sleeve, and you can't take the criticism. And like I said earlier, everywhere you go, you hear that. It's on TV, it's on the radio, it's in the in my day the newspapers, or there's a
Yeah.
you blow a game the next day that your picture is going to be on the cover of this publication that's freaking everywhere saying, hey, this guy blew it last night and he sucks. That's hard to deal with for some people.
You mentioned your home field. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What traits it has that other parks don't? You mentioned the family friendly aspect and the food in particular. What if I'm going there? What should I be getting?
So that's fun. So like every year, City Field has like probably in the month of like March, they have an event where they showcase all the new food. So it's almost like it's always changing. Besides Shake Shack, which now has become something that you can get anywhere. At first, I was
Worldwide,
like, I
yeah,
didn't know where
yeah.
else to get Shake Shack besides City Field. It was like you would lose seriously if you wanted Shake Shack and you went to a Mets game. You would have to be in the mental mindset that okay, I'm going to miss at least half the game on this line. Like literally, that's how much long it would take because it was like hysteria to get it, and it was delicious. But now they're like, there's one like a couple miles from my house right now. I can go get
Mm.
it for lunch if I want. Besides that Shake Shack, everything else is kind of potentially on like a rotation. There's all different stuff. All that, I mean, anything your heart could desire, from like pizza to subs, to steak sandwiches, to like unique like Asian fusion. And then in March they'll have this showcase where they invite like social media people and media to cover it, and you see all the new things. And it's like, honestly, my wife, she's kind of a fair weather baseball fan. She puts up with my fandom, but that's something that she gets excited about. Like, ooh, okay,
Mm.
this is what I have to look forward to, this year. Like, and it's a pretty fun thing every year for me. I think Yankee Stadium's had about the same stuff for decades now, and I won't go completely on the burial with them because I do love. They have a giant bucket of fries and chicken tenders, which is a pretty good deal.
As we discuss similarities and differences between Australian culture and American culture, and one thing we really get let down with over here in Australia is the food is never any good at sports.
Wow.
I know you get rinsed anyway in terms of the cost and any and everything, but yeah, we it's standard. Well, you don't get meat pies, but yeah, chips, which you call fries, and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. Which yeah, it's not the fun and exciting thing. So I make a point of asking everyone
Oh, City
about
View is the
the
complete opposite of that. It's like all unique, crazy things and desserts and just literally whatever you're whatever you're into. I mean, you can find something for everybody. And I always recommend doing the the research ahead of time, right? Like not don't just go there blindly and ooh, what's this? I think you this is the kind of thing where you need to like kind of go, okay, like what is this? What's that? And also there's it's only available on certain concourses. You gotta really kind of know if you're trying to hunt something down, you know. And back to what I said about that Shake Shack line, you could be wasting potential viewing time
mm,
messing around with that stuff. So I'd have a game plan.
good to know. I do plan on using that intel at some point. Um, you mentioned we've mentioned the Yankees a couple of times. What is that is that far and away the biggest rivalry? Are there any other teams that you guys have specific rivalries with?
Well, obviously the ones within the division, like the Phillies and stuff, but there's just something this is what it comes back to is living here, right? Because it's 50-50. It feels like, right? With anyone you encounter in my day to day. So it's like always there, right? Like who's doing better, what team's going to make the playoffs, you know. So it just doesn't go away. Like there can be years where the Phillies stink and I don't have to hate on them as much and it doesn't matter, right? But that the people in my life that I'm going to encounter day to day, the Yankee fans, they don't go away. So I think that's why that lingers. I don't even think the on-field thing is really like, we call it the Subway Series when they play. I don't even think that is like much of a thing as much as it is between just friends and communities and stuff like, who's better.
But uh, and comparing it back to Australian rules football, which is probably the most tribalistic sport in Australia. So our biggest city, football wise, has 10 different teams in it in the one
Hmm.
city. So where it used to be related to, where it used to be geographical, it's spread out and people stick with their teams based on family. And it sounds like you've done the same. But
Hmm.
is there sort of a geographical, if you live here, you're more likely to follow the Yankees. If you live here, you're more likely to follow the Mets?
I don't think so. I think it's inherited like your upbringing. That's how I see it. Cause I mean, literally my friends, like my high school friends that I'm still in contact with, it's split down the middle, Mets, Yankee, same with Jets and Giants if, in football, it just kind of, it's your upbringing, who influenced you, early on. And, yeah, you're kind of stuck with it in that sense. But, yeah, geographically, it doesn't, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Okay, and your typical Mets fan, do they have a respect for history? Are they dyed in the wool like yourself? I've maybe I'm. It does seem like most of you New York fans are pretty hardcore. So what else would I see from a typical Mets fan?
I do think Mets fans are pretty deep rooted in, the history. I also think a lot of it is sentimental, right? The people you grew up on and just, like anything in life, right? Like, the
Mm.
movies you saw when you were a kid or the toys you played with. There's just something like that that just stays with you. So I think a lot of it is deep rooted in that, like, if I met Juan Soto, I'd be like excited, but if I met like some random pitcher that I saw, as a kid, Turk Wendell or whatever, I get more excited. I don't know. It doesn't,
Yeah.
and that doesn't make any sense in like superstardom, right? It's just how impressionable I was back then. Um, but yeah, but the Mets fans and like the history is pretty is and it wasn't back in the day, but now it's like very much celebrated. They've retired a lot of numbers over the recent years, and there's pretty cool, um, setups at the stadium that honor the past, which is great.
Well, I mean, obviously Mike Piazza was a big deal and a high profile player. Who was that cult figure that you liked as a kid?
Piazza is number one for sure. Um, I loved I love like kind of quirky players. Like I mentioned, Turk Wendell. He was just if you look him up, he was like one of the oddest. He had all these superstitions, and he'd brush his teeth in the dugout in between innings, and he would spike the rosin bag. He wore this crazy necklace. He was a hunter, and he wore this necklace with all different teeth of animals that he'd killed. And he had like long. He kind of had like a mullet. He just was like so unique. He always stuck out to me. He also like back to what I'm saying, like sentimental. When at a game when I was a kid during batting practice, he threw me and my buddy a ball. So like you just don't forget that stuff, and
Mm,
that's why he
mm,
stuck with me forever. Um, then I love this guy Joe McEwing. They used to call him Super Joe. He basically played every position on the field. He's the ultimate like utility guy. He was a bench player, right,
mm,
essentially, but he was the first guy up for anyone who went down. And then he had a couple epic games where like he like owned Randy Johnson, which was the most random thing of all time. One of the most feared pitchers ever, and this random utility player used to have like these awesome games against him. So that was like kind of the legend of him, and I loved the mentality. And it's kind of like what I've taken to my wrestling career, like just take whatever you're given and put your best into it, right, and see what happens. Because like the opposite approach isn't going to get you anywhere, right? So I've always loved that. Like, put your head down and do the work, and good things will come from it.
well, and am I right in saying that the um the the blue and orange and maybe even the pinstripes have played a big part in your wrestling career aesthetically as well?
Yeah, at one point, I thought like I was trying to go full Taz style. Like I was never ever gonna wear any other colors. I was gonna do orange and blue for the rest of my career, and I got away with it in WWE. My whole second run in WWE, except for the night we won the tag titles, I wore the Jet stuff in
Yeah.
MetLife because I thought that was cool. Other than that, I mean, I wore the blue like my whole career. And then when I got to TNA, Scott Demore and Don Callis like didn't think it was like tough enough. Was kind of the perception I got, so they wanted me to change. And then once I did that, I started wearing like the darker colors, and now I'll wear whatever. It doesn't even matter, which is at the end of the day more fun for merchandising and whatever,
Mm.
things like that. But I tried, I really did try, and I do think it is cool that whole second run I wear orange and blue.
You brought up merch. Um, how well do the Mets do it? And is it something that I mean, you're wearing Nick's gear at the moment. Is it
Yeah.
something that you'll proudly wear about the place?
So if I'm being honest with you, I was so this. I mean, I guess this like is a testament to my fandom. I was so disheartened about the collapse that the team had this year that I hadn't worn. I how what are we going on? Maybe 5 weeks here.
Mm.
I hadn't worn any Mets stuff, which I normally wear every day, or to some degree something. I hadn't worn any Mets stuff in the past like 5 weeks, and I wore a hat and a tank top last week on vacation for the first time because I just was like so upset with the team and how they played and how they finished out, and I just seemed like they had a real lack of heart this year, and especially coming off of last year, which I don't know if you caught any of that, like the grimace stuff and the OMG stuff, and it was a very 2024 was a one of the most fun years to be a Met fan ever. Like just the team was electric, these come behind wins, and it was just like you could feel the camaraderie this team had like through your television screen. And then 2025 couldn't have been more of the opposite. I mean, they didn't have one courageous victory in the whole year. Like, it's a long time. 162 games to not have something like that is rough. So I was just very disheartened, and it took me a while. That's how upset I was. It took me a while. I just couldn't, I felt like I was cloaked in failure. I didn't want I feel like they didn't deserve to get represented for a little bit. That's how butthurt I was. But
Tell me a little bit more about that 2024 season, and what stood out to you.
they just had heart, like they were never out of games. There was like a lot of gimmicky stuff that made it much more fun. Jose Iglesias had that hit song, "Oh My God," OMG, and it kind of like took over the city. And then there was that, they were terrible. They were terrible the first 2 months of the season. And Grimace from McDonald's fame threw out the first pitch, and it like turned the season around. Whether that day on they started to like play with fight, and it was just like very random, fun things that just caught on, and it just seemed like they were, like I said, they were having so much fun on the field, and you could see that, and they were all like enjoying it, and like I think anything, any sport or even like a wrestling locker room, good things come from like good camaraderie and stuff when everyone's enjoying what they're doing. And this year it was just like doom and gloom. It wasn't even close to that, and it showed. They never came from behind and won. They never won a game from the eighth inning on, which is like that's hard to do. So, so you make, but that said, it makes you appreciate those fun seasons for sure, man. Because it was like a blast. Even my kids are singing the song, and I got them a bunch of OMG merch and stuff, and it just was like it was a blast to be a Mets fan. They got all the way to almost being in the World Series. So, um, like I said, you just appreciate the fun when you get the bad, and with being a Met fan, unfortunately, there's been a little bit more bad than good.
um, when you are on the road, and baseball is such a I mean, a lot of us sports fans from around the world just are in awe of how many games they pack into that amount of time.
It's actually crazy. Yeah.
It's unreal. I don't think there's too many sports in
No,
Australia
right, incomparable,
that
I think, to anything else.
well, yeah, we even our baseball league, they play 3 games a week, so they
Mhm.
play across Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But but how, and given that you yourself are on the road a lot, how do you keep tabs? How do you follow a team when you're such a big fan?
So I have a couple ways. I have the MLB app, which is very efficient. I use that a lot. I also play fantasy baseball, so then I also have like in with that, I'll be able to keep tabs on a lot of things because I almost have to. And then there is the MLB app, the subscriber thing where you can watch games. So I do have an account to that I have access to. So I try to like watch when I can. And I know other guys like Fandango's a huge Red Sox guy, and he like lives and dies by that thing, or like he wants to like finish his segment at work to get out of there to go, catch the end of the game and things like that. But there's also other like weird loopholes, like, and it's happened to me a bunch where like, I'll be in, Florida and they're playing the Marlins and it's blacked out on the app and I can't watch it. So that it gets a little, hectic sometimes, but definitely doable if you really want to. And then a lot of it early on, especially, it's not like you're not living and dying by every pitch, right? You got to kind of let the season play out. The craziest one was last year, uh, when Pete Alonso hit that home run in Milwaukee that like saved the season. Basically, it was down to like the last swing, and we were in Nashville filming TNA, and I literally was looking at my phone to the last second, and I had to go do my match, and I'm like, that's it, the season's over. What a season! Like they tried, and I put my phone down. I came back after my segment, my match, and I had like 80 something texts from like family, friends, but it was like, wait, what? He hit like one of the most courageous home runs of all time and saved the season. So
um, so on the media coverage and it, just talk us through the be it radio or television. Do the Mets commentators have a close relationship with both the fans and the area?
that's another like point of pride with being a Mets fan. Gary, Keith, and Ron. I mean, they are beloved, and they have like such a high reputation within the industry of like being basically maybe the best trio in all of sports, not just baseball. Then they make it. That's another thing I realized like how spoiled I am with them because they make every game, even a shit game, like entertaining and worth watching and listening to them. Whereas in like I've watched like good games of other teams and other continents, just not the same. Like I'm on the road and I watch a random game or whatever it is. It's just not the same. And these guys have such a rapport and they're so beloved and they keep it very carefree but honest. It's just a wonderful thing, man. And when that combo is finally done, it's going to be like a sad day, for Mets fans because we've been just blessed with that team for so long. They actually just announced they're doing like a signing, and I'm like, oh man, I would love to just get a picture with the three of them. That's the coolest thing. So,
Well, would you believe, and I don't know how much of an impact it had at the time, but I would say of the baseball players in terms of their profile, Keith Hernandez is probably one of the most famous baseball players in Australia
Wow.
because he dated Elaine on Seinfeld.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Who does this guy think he is?
I'm Keith Hernandez.
So I guess the question I would have is if I was new to baseball, why would I follow the Mets?
Oh man, I wouldn't like push them on anyone. I think you have to like figure out like something. I think a team should call to you. I wouldn't want to like politic for someone to be a Mets fan. I think you need to follow your heart and pick a team and see what works for you in that sense. I don't think there's like, hey, this is what you should do because and then it would be super unfair. Like oh, be a Yankees fan because they have 26 World Championships. Like that seems pretty lame, right? I think. And also, I wouldn't want to be like a Dodgers fan right now, where they're just crushing everybody, and they've bought this like super team. I don't think that's very fun either, unless you have no heart about it, right? So I think a lot of the good of baseball comes from the bad, and you have to like ride that roller coaster. So you have to figure that out for yourself.
Well, I think that's maybe not the most one-eyed advice that I was hoping for, but definitely sage advice.
Yeah.
Um, but your involvement goes a little deeper now with something that you and the major team are going to release through the Big Rubber Guys. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're able to acquire the MLB license. Right now it's just teams and mascots. We're working on a player agreement, which for me I would love to eventually do like legendary players, because it's the big rubber guys are to me an 80s toy form factor. So like to have like a McGuire and Canseco Bash Brothers where maybe you can have them do the forearm celebration, something like that would be really cool for me, and that'd be a real dream, Ken Griffey Jr. or something. But right now we have Philly Fanatic and Mr. Met on the way, which is obviously a dream come true for me. And I have a like myself, Knick, and Matt. We all collect whoever we make. We try to get autographed by said person if possible. But we've been making some really cool stuff. We made Stallone as Rambo and Kickboxer Jean-Claude Van Damme. And those I've told myself like I'm not going to get those autographed, but if we can, I will. But Mr. Met, you better believe I will have him a backpack at Citi Field next season, and I will try to get the first ever autograph, Big Rubber Guy, Mr. Met. I mean, that's like a real goal of mine. So definitely a dream come true. I love that he's accompanied by his arch nemesis, the Philly Fanatic. I think that's very fun. They're both, wildly toyetic, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the real goal also there is to get these in the team stores. Like you can go to Citi Field and buy it in the team store, and I think that's going to be really cool.
And you mentioned some old players. Are you hoping to spread a little bit wider with the mascots as well?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, and so we had these shown at New York Comic Con last month, and people were, man, I think we could have sold 500 Mr. Mets if it was ready. They were just prototypes, but people were really excited. And they kept saying, "Oh, you're gonna make this, you're gonna make that." I said, "These need to be a success, and yeah, we can make more." But this first series needs to be a success, and that's the key to the success. These need to do well, and then like the sky's the limit. And we also have a Macho Man in Cincinnati Reds garb, which if you know that he was a minor leaguer with the Cincinnati Reds organization, so it's got a little callback to it. So,
And these days with your schedule, how often do you get down to the park?
so in my my single years, I lived in Queens, where the stadium is, and I was like a man 13-minute train ride away. It was unbelievable. I went so much. I have really fond memories of 2015 because that's when they made it to the World Series, and that was like a wildly fun year when they got Cespedes, and I went to so many games that year. And growing up, I went to so many games. Now that I'm an adult with children, I still get to about 5 or 6 a year, but obviously I'd always like to bump those numbers up. But that's the realistic way it is now, and it's not like it's just a different experience for me. It's not tailgating and smashing beers and shit like that. It's like driving and taking my kids and just taking them around and making sure they enjoy it. And obviously, I want them to have the fond memories that I have with going with my dad. I hope that that's rubbing off on them.
Oh, are they liking it so far?
Yeah, but I think they like getting ice cream and that kind of stuff. But yeah, hopefully hopefully they'll develop an appreciation for the game.
Well, I'm sure they will if they've got you at as their mentor. Mate, where can we find you and on socials and particularly if we want to keep an eye on when these figures are going to come out?
Collect Major at Collect Major. That's on X and Instagram, and then collectmajor.com is the website. You can check it out. Like I said, we have plenty of things in stock. Always got some kind of pre-order going. Check that out. And if you want to look for me, at Myers_wrestling on all forms of social media. And hey, TNA Wrestling. We're on Access TV now and the TNA Plus app, which I can't say enough nice things about. So check it out there.
Excellent, mate. And if anyone has any questions or any people they'd like to see on the podcast, please hit me up on Instagram at Dumb Aussie BB. Just remember, there's no dumb questions, just a dumb Aussie. We'll see you next week.